Good morning, students. Welcome to our class, Biological Science. Dear students, so far we are discussing about the reproduction. We have discussed different types of modes of reproduction in the different types of organisms. Okay, sexual mode of reproduction, asexual mode of reproduction, and the spore formation, rhizopus, everything we have completed. In the previous class, we discussed about the male reproductive system. Yes or no? So, male reproductive system, different types of parts that present in it and their functions. And structure of the sperm also we completed. Now, we enter into the female reproductive system. What is that? Female reproductive system. Dear students, in the female reproductive system also, there is a certain parts that present in it, certain organs are there, and they perform different types of functions. One of the most important parts we are going to discuss here, a pair of ovaries. So these are ovaries. Ovaries, fallopian tubes, a pair of fallopian tubes. A pair of ovaries, a pair of fallopian tubes, and uterus. So this is uterus. Uterus. Fourth one is vagina. This part is cervix. Okay, these are the 5 important parts. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So in the female reproductive system, there are a pair of ovaries, a pair of fallopian tubes, uterus, and vagina is present. Mammary glands which produce the milk also includes in the female reproductive system. Mammary glands which helps to feed the babies, newborn babies. Okay, now we are going to discuss about one by one. The first one is ovaries. Okay, a pair of ovaries are present in the female reproductive system. I already told you about it. So the ovaries are located in the abdominal cavity. Okay, in both sides in the lumbar region. So the ovaries are located in the abdominal cavity. The ova is develops in the tiny cellular structure called follicle. Listen carefully. The ovaries are located in the abdominal cavity. The ova develops in the cellular structure called follicles, which at first look like cellular bubbles called Graafian follicles. What are those? Graafian follicles. So the ova develops in the Graafian follicles. Do you understand? There are a pair of ovaries that present in the abdominal cavity. Okay, the ova is develops in the cellular-like structure called follicles, which at first look like cellular bubbles called Graafian follicles. The ova is develops in the Graafian follicles. When a follicle grows, okay, tiny cellular bubble-like structure. When if you think it's a cellular bubble follicle, when a follicle grows, it develops a cavity filled with fluid. Okay, na? When a follicle grows, it develops a cavity filled with fluid, and the ovum is develops in that cavity. Okay, so after the cell division, meiosis, okay, the ovum is developed in this cavity after the process of meiosis. Remind this process. Two types of process are there. Cell processes, meiosis and mitosis. We will discuss about it later in the coming class. Okay, the first one. The ova develops in these follicles. When a follicle grows, it develops a cavity filled with fluid. The ova develops in it. Okay, after the process of cell division through the meiosis. Okay, when a ovum matures, when the ovum matures, ovum is develops here. When the ovum matures, the follicle ruptures at the surface of the ovary. Here, whenever ovum is mature, when the ovum is matured, the follicle ruptures at the surface of the ovary and flushed out the tiny egg. This process of releasing of egg is called ovulation. Very important one more question. What is ovulation? This one is ovulation. The process of releasing of egg. The process of releasing of egg or ovum is called ovulation. Do you understand? This is about the ovaries. There are a pair of ovaries that present in the abdominal cavity. The ova is develops in the tiny cellular like structures called follicles, which at first look like cellular bubbles. That means the ova is develops in the cellular bubble like structures called Graafian follicles. When a follicle is develops or when a follicle grows, it develops a cavity filled with fluid. And then the ovum is develops by the process of meiosis. When the ovum is matured, the follicle ruptures at the surface of the ovary and flushed out the ova. So this process, the releasing of the egg is called ovulation. Okay. So that is about ovaries. Now I am going into the fallopian tube. The second part is fallopian tube. Students, it's also known as oviduct. Okay, fallopian tube. So there are a pair of fallopian tubes. Generally, the ova enters into the widened part of the funnel called oviduct. So this is the ova. Generally, the ova enters into the widened part of the funnel called oviduct, which arises from the neighborhood of the ovary to thick muscular walled uterus. See this. Okay, the ova travels through this oviduct. First of all, the ova enters into this widened funnel-like structure called oviduct. Okay, do you understand? Generally, the ova enters into the widened funnel-like structure called oviduct. Fallopian tube also known as oviduct. Okay, so this duct arises from the neighborhood of the ovary to the thick muscular wall. To the muscular thick wall part uterus, from here to here. This is uterus. Okay, so it starts from the neighborhood of the ovary to uterus. Okay, so the ova travels through this fallopian tube. The fertilization takes place when the ovum travels through this fallopian tube. The fertilization takes place when this ovum travels through this fallopian tube. Thus the new life starts. The second phase of meiosis of the ovum. The second phase of the meiosis of the ovum takes place after the entry of sperm before the fusioning of the two nucleus. Do you understand this? This is ovum, this is sperm. The two have the nucleus. Before the fusioning of nucleus, the second phase of meiosis takes place. Then the zygote is formed. The zygote is developed by the mitotic division. Okay, so you understand clearly. The The ovum travels this oviduct. Okay now. Through this oviduct. When the sperm enters into it, the fertilization will take place. Okay. So after the fertilization takes place, the zygote is formed. The second phase of meiosis of the ovum takes place before the fission of sperm. Before the fission of sperm or mix of nucleus. After the entry of the sperm, before the fission of male nucleus. Okay, then the zygote is developed by the mitotic division. Okay, it slowly transforms downwards and entered into the uterus. Before ova reaching into the uterus, it transforms into a solid ball of cells. Do you understand this point? Before reaching the uterus, the ovum transforms into a small ball of solid cells. Okay, so that is about fallopian tube. Do you understand that? Fallopian tube. What is the fallopian tube? There are a pair of fallopian tubes. Generally, the ova enter into the widened funnel-like structure called oviduct. Okay, the ova travels in this oviduct downwards and finally reaches the uterus. Before it reaches the uterus, if the sperm into it, the fertilization takes place and the zygote will be formed, then the new life will be started. Do you understand that? Here, what happens? The second phase of the meiosis of the ovum takes place after the entry of the sperm before the fissioning of the both nuclei. Then the zygote is formed. The zygote develops by the mitotic division. Before reaching the uterus, the zygote transforms into the solid ball of cells. Okay, so that is about fallopian tubes. Now, another important one is uterus. What is that? The third part is uterus. See here, uterus. Uterus means in Telugu, Garbhasayam. So, uterus is the only place where the development of baby takes place. Womb. From womb to tomb annaga. Like that, uterus where the development of the baby takes place. Uterus is a inverted pear-shaped structure. What is that? Inverted pear-shaped structure. So uterus is an inverted pear-shaped structure. The inner layer of the uterus. This is uterus. The inner layer of the uterus is called endometrium. What is that? The inner layer of the uterus is endometrium. Very important. Very, very important. This one. The inner layer of the uterus is called endometrium. The layers of this endometrium increases in its size, increases in its thickness. Okay now? So, the inner layer of the uterus is called endometrium. The layers of this endometrium begins thickness, increase in its thickness soon after the menstruation. Do you understand that? The layers of this endometrium getting thickness soon after the menstruation. If the fertilization takes place, it will be ready to receive the embryo. It will be ready to receive the embryo. Okay, if the fertilization takes place, it will be ready to receive the embryo. If the fertilization does not take place, the endometrium disintegrates. That means it shrinks in its it shrinks and flows out as a menstrual fluid. If fertilization takes place, the thickness of the layers increases. The thickness of the layer continuous and it will be ready to receive the embryo for further development of the embryo. Okay, so uterus very important. These layers are very important for nourishing the baby and also disposing of the waste of the embryo. Okay, these layers are very important for the nourishment of the embryo and also disposal of the waste materials of this embryo. Okay, do you understand about this one? Uterus. Uterus is a inverted shaped, pear-shaped structure. The inner layer of the uterus is called endometrium. Okay, the thickness of these layers increases. It getting more thickness soon after the menstruation because it is ready to receive the embryo if the fertilization takes place. If there is no fertilization takes place, the endometrium disintegrates. Okay, now it cuts itself and flows out as menstrual fluid. If the fertilization takes place, it increases in its thickness, it continues in its thickness and ready to receive the embryo for the development of the baby. Okay, these layers are very important in the development of embryo because it provides nourishment and also protecting the embryo, nourishment and disposal of waste. Now, the zygote is developed by the mitotic division. We already discussed that. Now, the zygote is the division in the zygote going on. That means the zygote divides. It continuously divides. What has happened? Think once again. Once a second. So here the embryo reaches the uterus. This is the embryo. Okay. Once the embryo enters into the uterus, it sinks in the soft tissues of the uterus. Once it enters into the uterus, it sinks in the soft tissues of the uterus. Once it is attached, it's sinking in the soft tissues of uterus. Do you understand? The zygote division continues. A ovum in the fallopian tube travels downwards and finally attaches to the tissues of the uterus. Once it attaches to the uterus, it sinks in the soft tissues of the uterus. Okay, then what has happened? The certain cells of this embryo develops into different types of layers. The certain cells of this embryo develops into different types of layers and protect the embryo. Okay, and helps the embryo in the different types of manner. I will explain about it. What are that? Membranes. Which type of membranes are produced or formed around this uterus during the development of the embryo? Okay, do you understand? Embryo after the uterus, I cleared about it. When the ovum travels through this oviduct and finally attaches to the tissues of the uterus. Once it attached, it sinks in the soft tissues of the uterine wall. After that, certain cells of this embryo develops into different types of layers. What are the layers and their functions? We are going to discuss about it. Okay, in the next class. Okay, thank you.